Well, that happened to a lot of inventors. Wasn't the guy who discovered, I can't remember if it was the guy who was supposed to discover phosphorus or something, but he was found dead at his bench in the lab because he used to
Sure.
taste test everything.
Oh, dude. I mean, yeah, that's not great. I mean, Marie Curie just slowly poisoned herself to death, right? Because of all of the radioactive stuff that they all interacted with.
Yeah,
So
I don't actually know who that is, by the way.
you don't know who Marie Curie is?
No, it's one of those references to my life that, like, clairvoyant. I don't know who she is either. I just,
Dude, you know what you're doing when you say
I know.
clairvoyant.
It's just one of those references that I see all the time and I have no interest reading. You know why? Because he sounds like somebody from a cooking show.
Marie Curie. It does sound like Mary Berry.
Oh, there's a Mary Berry? I was just thinking.
You have to know that there's a Mary Berry.
I know there's a Halle Berry. I don't know if there's a Mary Berry.
Mary Berry, have you never watched the Great British Bake Off? That is your culture.
Yeah, but I would have watched the Great British Bake Off and not known it was Mary Berry. Oh, this is ridiculous.
Oh my god, man.
who am I even searching for? Marie Curie.
Marie Curie.
Marie Curie.
Welcome to Acceptance Criteria, where we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of how software gets made and how we can all do a better job together. My name is Kevin Thomas Euland, and across the chat from me is Andrew Greener. Say hi, Andrew.
Hi, Andrew. We're also here to get deeper on the human elements. I could go on for an eternity about people and how they think about the process of building complex systems. I can't think of two better people to do that than Kevin and I.
And that's why we need you to come be a guest. If you've got a topic you'd like to come discuss or rant about, drop us a note and we'll see if we can get you on a future episode. And a quick reminder, whether this is your first episode or you've been listening for a while, we wouldn't say no to your going and dropping 5 stars on Apple Podcast or Spotify and leaving us a nice review. And if you want to leave us a bad review, remember the name of the podcast is Pop Culture Happy Hour. Also tell your friends if you like the show and that they should check it out. Some of the best podcasts out there go by word of mouth, and we'd much appreciate it.
And a friendly reminder that we're always interested in hearing questions directly from you, our listeners, for our segment, User Stories. If you've got a scenario you'd like help with, whether it's working with an engineering or product team member, trying to figure out how to solve an agile process problem, or you just can't understand why your favorite app updated everything and now it's terrible, we're here to talk it through with you. You can send those questions to acceptancepod@gmail.com or submit them on the Discord in the User Stories channel, and we might be able to help on a future episode. And we're happy to keep it anonymous so no one can trace it back to you if you end up talking to a coworker or something.
On this week's show, we'll answer some more Reddit questions and hopefully help some folks. But before we get to all of that, let's take a short break and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. This is a segment we like to call User Stories, where we'll eventually hopefully be answering questions that you, the listeners, send in. But for now, I think we found some interesting questions on Reddit that we can tackle. Chase Bears. I do enjoy. Did you ever watch the other two on HBO?
No. Oh, the movie?
Chase Dreams. No, it's a TV show.
No. I'm thinking of the other guys.
Oh, yeah. That was a good movie. So Chase Bears, the VP of sales goes to your boss, or worse, the CEO, every time they do not like what is next on your roadmap. And it was not a very in-depth Reddit question. That was basically the scenario posed, and they were asking for advice on what to do when the VP of sales disagrees with them and constantly goes to the boss or the CEO to do an end run around them. And I think there's degrees of this. I think there are absolutely cases where sales gets obsessed with closing the next big client, and you told them you're not going to work on feature A because you're currently working on feature B, but feature A is the one that the client wants and they won't close the deal without it. I think there are situations where that's bad, and sales is notorious for doing that. But 9 times out of 10, you probably haven't done your job as a product person getting sales and marketing and engineering and all of your different teams on board with the roadmap and understanding the value of feature B and why it's more important to do feature B for 30 clients than it is to do feature A for 10 clients. And if you've been doing a good job in your value effort discovery, if you've been doing a good job building that roadmap and tying it to that business value, your VP of sales is less likely to do that. But I don't know, this is a full 50-50 in my mind, because there are absolutely really annoying people in sales, and sorry to all of the people that I know who are friends who are in sales. This is not a blanket statement, but you know the guy who flips their lid over the fact that they can't close the client deal and they go and demand that this new feature gets added. And sometimes that's a constructive conversation about the value of a thing and the timeliness of that value arriving, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's $1 million client, and that's not enough revenue compared to everything else that you're doing to justify derailing the entire roadmap. I fully am 50-50 on this one.
Yeah, I think that's my position too, because I'd say, again, without all the numbers, is this sales department 40% performing ahead of their projections? You know, it's like,
Right.
are they underperforming? So I don't know. This is a tough one for me because I definitely have experience with sales guys who've been that way. But yeah, this is I could definitely go either way on this one. I think in this case though, the way to solve it is Fight Club.
Yes, your constant solution that all of these things are solved by Fight Club.
It is pretty constant. Yeah, Fight Club in
Yeah.
this case would solve this problem. You two guys go out back.
Well, it depends. Depends on who your sales guy is and who you are.
Well, yeah, if the guy's like 260 pounds and I'm like 150.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly. Right. No, but I do think this is one of those things where I would say if you're doing your job in the product sphere, you are hopefully already data driven. You are hopefully already doing a good job documenting all of this, and you should be able to go to your boss or the CEO and say, hey, look, this guy has the reason that he wants to do this is because of one client for $130,000. I'm just telling you, we've got 10 clients for $5 million who want this other feature first. You're the CEO. If you're going to overrule me, that's what's going to happen, but you better make sure that you're doing your job conveying to them the data-driven reasons why this is a bad idea.
Yeah, but I'd still go with the Fight Club because even with the mismatch, there's a mutual respect after, and they'll find a way to deal with it without going to the CEO. That's my bet. So there you go. You heard it now. Chase-Bears.
Fight Club.
It's a recommendation. It's not. I've heard.
Legally, when he gets killed by the VP of sales in the basement fight, it's not on us.
Let me do the Fox News. Some people say that that is a solution.
Amazing.
Allegedly, Fox have said that in the past.
Allegedly. All right. Arc Maxim. Should customer interviews be structured or dynamic? And they ask, I think they both have pros and cons, but considering we are a small company still and the fact that we're still kind of trying to find product market fit, I would assume conversational would be more effective. And I don't know, this feels to me like one of those, why do you have to choose? I have had most success in like a semi-structured interview where I have a series of open-ended questions and I'm trying to get towards a specific point, and there's a whole thing in UX and customer research about you don't want to bias the person with the question itself. So there's ways that you have to ask these questions of customers so that you don't get the answer you're hoping to get. But you should have a structure. Just going to the customer and saying, what problems are you facing, is not actually helpful. They're going to tell you what's wrong with their ERP system. Like, that's not helpful if you're trying to solve something else. So you have to have some structure to it. What you don't want to do is get stuck in asking, if I gave you a thing that was a plug into Excel and it let you do blah, 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 would that be good for you? That's a terrible question. Yes, that is far too structured, and you need to be able to listen to what people are saying and follow what they're doing and go do the dynamic part of it is knowing how to listen, knowing how to hear what they're telling you and know that's the thing that you should ask the follow-up question on, drill in and understand why are they doing that process? Why is it this thing? I'd say the number one thing you should be doing is asking to actually watch them do their jobs. Don't just go and ask them questions. Actually say, great, we think we're going to solve this type of process for you. Let me watch how you do it today and let's see what are the pitfalls you run into, and we will see what we can do to improve those. I don't know. It's one of those questions that to me says this person just hasn't had to do these very often, and they're like reading a bunch of Google results and trying to figure out the next thing to do, because the answer is experience, unfortunately, and you have to just go in and start to talk to people and get good at listening skills. I don't know how to recommend people get good at listening skills. Is that a whole course we can offer to people? But yeah, it is about having a goal in mind and then adapting in the call itself. I don't know.
What I find that not the paradox of this one, maybe it's paradoxical. You're trying to figure out how to interview your customer. There's got to be a good way of asking the customer without directly asking them whether they want lemon meringue pie versus apple pie, right? So, and sort of my
Right.
point on that is I could take the really scientific approach, like, and ask them a series of questions and say, cool, they are apple pie people. Right? Or I could
Right.
sort of find somewhere in the middle, which is like, hey, we're going to give you a little sample of 2 ways of doing this exercise, apple pie or lemon meringue, and see how they respond to it. And it might be like, oh, well, we feel more comfortable doing that. And be like, yeah, but we weren't getting good information. So we can continue on that track, but we're going to need a little bit more detail from your side if you're okay that we go that way. So I'm almost like thinking to myself, like, the weird thing about this is if you don't know your customer, maybe you need to ask some questions before you even get to the customer interview phase, right? Like this was why I had a relationship with certain levels in aviation. It's like I knew who I had to fly to, and I knew who I was jumping on a call with, and I knew who was reaming me out, and then would be reasonable. So then when we were doing sort of more formal process stuff with the customers, I knew how to approach it, whether it was this apple pie, lemon meringue, right? So yeah, it's a weird one for me, but it does feel like you had pointed out, it does feel like someone researching for the first time, like, oh, I've got to find one way that works for all of them potentially. And it's like, I don't think that's true.
And it doesn't. Well, and there are definitely purists and diehards out there, especially in UX research, who will say, like, the only question you're allowed to ask is, what type of dessert do you like? And from there, you have to go and branch out. And it's like, okay, but at some point, you're going to be in a room with a customer.
Sorry, when they ask that question, do they really ask that question, or you use that because I used apple pie and lemon meringue?
I used that because of apple pie.
Okay, because I was about to like declare myself a genius and say
they're doing full behavioral. Like, oh, actually, it turns out that like people who like chocolate dessert prefer Apple devices.
I got there all by myself without any training on UX and UI. So.
No, so let's take the apple pie and lemon meringue. UXers will often say, like, the correct way to do it is you ask them, what is your favorite type of dessert? How do you eat dessert? And the problem you'll run into is there are people who will give you wishy-washy answers of like, oh, it depends on the restaurant I'm in and I don't really have a preference. There are people who will give you the answer of like, oh, you know, I like brownies and the only thing I eat are brownies. And so then you're there are times when you get hamstrung. Sometimes that's really interesting because every single person you interview tells you like they like cookies and brownies and not a single person brings up pie. That is helpful. That's helpful market research for you to realize we are trying to sell pies to people and yet not a single person told us that pie was their number one preferred dessert. Cool. That's actually very helpful. But if you're going in with a specific thing that you need to figure out which of the pies you should make, at some point you do need to put your thumb on the scale a little bit and be like, okay, cool. Love to hear about the brownies and the vanilla ice cream. When it comes to pie, what is your favorite type of, right? Like at some point you do need to get a little bit, and that's where it is. It's semi-structured and it's dynamic in that you're hearing things, but you do need to have a goal in mind. If you are a pie selling company, hearing about brownies all day doesn't do you any good.
And I like that. And I guess that's what I was trying to get out of the scientific approach, which is if you ask me if I want pie or brownies and I pick brownies, which I probably wouldn't do, but I can tell you what the tipping point for me picking brownies over apple pie would be. If the next question after I pick the brownie is structured in a way that, did you not pick the apple? Would it make a difference if you had sides with the apple pie?
Right.
Yes. Right. And then it's like ice cream. No. Custard. Yes. I'm going apple pie with custard all day long. No, it doesn't end the conversation now. There is no other dessert that I will eat that I want more than apple pie with custard. So,
or knowing it's because you like chocolate. Okay, is that stupid Burger King pie now an option for us to consider because it's the chocolate pie? No, I'm fully digging you on your dumb Burger King pie. We're coming back to that cold opening.
At least have the respect to call it by its name.
The moon pie? Is that what it was called?
It's called a Hershey pie.
Hershey pie, whatever. But that's the thing is you can still get some answers. Okay, great. They said brownie. Great. Why is it brownie? Because it is, you know, more savory than sweet because it always comes with vanilla ice cream. Okay. Apple pie always comes with vanilla ice cream. Maybe right? Like that, those kinds of things. You absolutely can go down those roads and you have to, that's why it's active listening skills. That's why it's being able to adapt and go on it. But you still have a point of view. You are still a company trying to do a specific thing. I mean, hopefully if you're Oracle Workday, you're trying to do everything for everyone and it's terrible, but hopefully you have a purpose here. And so you got to be able to figure out how to adapt and figure that out. And that's tricky. There's no book you're going to read that's going to help you figure that out. You and I on the fly started to figure out sides with pie because we've had to be in these situations and we recognize the pattern of what we've done in the past, which is it doesn't matter whether we're talking about marketing technology or aviation technology, you got to have that skill set. And that's the skill set to work on.
Yeah. I often wonder what it's like to be the other type of people who not the people who are doing those same kind of calculations and keeping it to themselves and then making a decision, but the people who don't, who just make snap decisions where, again, this is where companies have technology divergence, where it's like, it was never a consideration for me to actually check with anyone else if they've ever bought any software that does this, or I'm not even going to go to the market and see if there's anything that does this. I'm just going to start coding.
It's that lack of curiosity that I just cannot understand.
Yeah.
If only because I'd be super pissed 6 months later to find out I wasted those 6 months doing the thing and there already was 4 other companies doing that, or I could have gotten and found the unique thing if I just asked other people. It's that curiosity that I want everyone to have.
Yeah, it would actually be my downfall too, because if I spent a year writing something that existed on the market. I'm super honest about this stuff. So I would actually feel compelled to go tell my boss and other stakeholders. By the way,
Right.
I made a big mistake about a year ago and I started to write Apache Airflow. Ugh.
Right. Whoops. Uh-oh.
Whoops, you know. And I think I should stop coding because I don't want to do the 4-year roadmap that they are ahead of me. Let's just
Right.
use Apache Airflow.
Yeah, it is. And I think that goes back to, I can't say it goes back to the conversation because I don't know the order that we'll edit this in, but we've talked about in the past or possibly in the future, being engaged in meetings. And I think that's probably that curiosity. Maybe curiosity is part of the thing that I'm trying to identify as like a core skill set. If you're not curious about things, if you don't have that thing to say, I'm not sure, I should ask this other person about it and get them to engage and teach me about it or share their knowledge about it. And now we both know, and we're now going to make a smarter decision as a result of that. Your meetings probably suck a little bit. And some of that's probably, I'm not going to say all meetings are your fault for not being curious. There's plenty of terrible meetings that are terrible for other reasons, but that curiosity is just something that's so important to me. And I hope it's important to other people. And I think you do a lot of jobs more effectively if you're just constantly curious about things. All right, Poet Laureate 24. Startup PMs, how transparent is your leadership? If you work at a startup, how transparent is your leadership team about the core health metrics like runway, unit economics, churn, ARR, etc.? These are important metrics for product managers and roadmap prioritization, but our leadership is frustratingly tight-lipped about all of it, even in private conversations, and I'm curious if this is the norm at other Series A or early stage companies. Ours won't even disclose valuation. Time to find a new job. This is not a good startup. There are parts of startups that they're not going to tell you certain things because it is risky, it is stressful, there's a lot of things happening, but no, the best startups are transparent. Oh, you're making a face at me. Why are you making a face at me?
I know there's always more information to these, but because it's a Poet Laureate 24, I was thinking I imagine them walking into the CEO and being like, hey, so how rich is this bitch? And I'm thinking, that's
writing poetry about this situation.
Like spitting out lyrics, and maybe the CEO is just like, I'm not telling you anything. I don't want to be.
You're going on Reddit and posting our secrets.
I don't want to be in one of your songs or your poems.
No. But yeah, I would say a good startup, you should understand, especially as a product manager, maybe not runway. Maybe runway, the amount of cash on hand, all of that kind of stuff. Maybe there are degrees of leadership, but your unit economics, your churn, your ARR, all of those kinds of things. Your valuation, I would hope you have some understanding of, because hopefully you got some options in this startup. This seems just like a bad situation. I'm probably overly transparent, and I tell my teams, unless I've been sworn to legal secrecy, I'm going to tell you what I know about situations. But I don't know. It's not a good sign.
Yeah, I would tend to agree because it's certainly because it's product too. But yeah, all right. Let's just pretend this person's on the level and not rapping. How rich is this bitch?
Right.
Yeah, I would say maybe time to look at another startup. Because some of these definitely are important for a product guy to know, right? For the prioritization and the shape of your customer. I was kind of abstracted out. Are we selling a square or a triangle? How's it going? What's the shape of the market? What's the shape of the customer? What's the temperature out there? So yeah, maybe time to.
And if you're a startup leader and you are facing bad news and you don't want to scare your employees because you're panicking and hoping you're going to go raise another 10 million to keep you all afloat, I don't care. That's the kind of stuff you owe to your employees to share with them, that you are figuring out what to do. It should be all hands on deck. You should want everyone to be getting creative with you to figure out what's not working. Why are you in this situation? It's baffling from all sides.
It's also the challenge with this one for me is this PM rolling up to another senior product guy?
Kevin from the future just popping in to tell new listeners and remind old listeners when Andrew says guys, he's using it in the gender neutral everybody terminology. Don't come for him. Don't cancel him. Anyways, back to the episode.
And it's the senior product guy not sharing it. Because that's the challenge with these, right? Is
maybe.
And when they say ours won't even disclose valuation. So it sounds like maybe there's a couple of these people who are sort of like, hey, we sort of need this, right? So, but yeah, because I find it hard, not that I distrust Poet Laureate, but you should be able to have that conversation in a small company and relate how these numbers or temperature at the very least relate back to your job.
Right.
And I
Exactly.
wonder if this person has done that, or whether the person that they report to has done that, and they just haven't gone anywhere. Because that's even worse, right? Like we've actually told them why these numbers are important to do our job. So then you
Right.
definitely have to get out. If you still can't get them, then you definitely have to go because they don't understand
Yep.
what you do, and you're the first to go when when the unit economics don't turn out to be that great.
Exactly. Yeah, wild. All right. MBP Central wants advice on swarming. I'm a relatively new Scrum Master, and one thing that I've read about is the benefit of swarming. In our team, it is a frequent occurrence that we get a week into the sprint and nothing is done yet, then suddenly an avalanche at the end of the sprint. Swarming sounds like a great idea in theory in increasing collaboration and reducing the total duration of single items, but I'm wondering what people's experience is with it who successfully got a team to do it. Is it actually worth doing? As a non-technical person, my background is mechanical engineering, then traditional product management. How can I coach the team to break down a story into tasks to facilitate swarming? Any tips in general around swarming? And I think swarming is aimed at fixing production issues. Usually, in my experience, it is how do you get a bunch of engineers all looking at the bug and everyone is just on it trying to figure it out. I haven't actually seen swarming be a thing that you do for traditional sprint user stories. The whole thing seems surprising to me. I can't imagine swarming is an actual good sprint management tactic. So yeah, I was sort of curious, have you run into this as a thing that's worth doing? I don't know how you would possibly have 5 engineers all working on the same API call, the same UI screen, the same database update. Like that seems like madness.
Yeah, similar to you. When I think of like, hey, we're going to open up a conference line for 48 hours, 2 days, 2 working days, 16 hours,
Sure.
and you get all the engineers on, or you get the engineers that you need on to tackle a couple of issues, and it's almost like it's just like a tiger team mentality, right? Like we're going to fix these things, we're going to swarm and get these done.
And that's usually time boxed. That's usually like we know we're going to end and resolve a thing, and that is a measurable endpoint, and we have pressure from a client, from whatever.
Yeah, and then the places where I've worked, ever been in a position where I've been at the place where it was my worry or care. But again, it's like, I don't know, it feels like such a small drop in the ocean of the types of problems that I've seen. Like if you're worrying about whether swarming is useful, I don't know, maybe I'm being too critical, but try it. And if it does work, like cool. If it doesn't work, don't do it again, right? Like I think, like, because the question is it actually worth doing? And this is the point of Agile. Give it a try.
I guess, but it seems so wildly inefficient. We're both engineers
No,
in
no,
our
no, I
past
know.
lives. I could not in good faith tell you that this is a interesting strategy for
I
you.
know, but I only know not to stick my fingers in certain places because I did it once.
No, we're not going
I'm
back to
just
that
saying.
argument.
Sometimes you got to get burnt. A lot of my
Uh,
experience is where I got burnt.
yeah, but we're trying to offer people advice so they can avoid getting burned.
No, because they may learn something. It's like the fight I get into about Apple Vision Pro. What you learn from failure is still valuable. So they may do swarming and say, actually, it didn't work because the numbers were too great or the wrong people came in. But we actually discovered like it's not called swarming, but we do something slightly different. We added our own little piece to it, and it's not quite swarming, it's something else. But they will only know that if they try, right?
I suppose that is fair.
They can try it for a month.
Okay, yikes.
I think it also, to your point, like if you're working on a big architecture where there's like 2 people who know that, and
Right.
so I'm going to take 2 guys that know something that are now split to do 2 different sort of sets of functionality, but that functionality has to wait while these guys swarm on this. It's not even really a swarm at that point, right?
Right.
So yeah, try it. MVP Central.
All right. Broken Axle asks, is the pragmatic framework a good fit for us? I'm the CEO of an enterprise SaaS company. We are in single-digit millions ARR or revenue, mostly customer funded, and very few customers, less than 10, but relatively high customer value. Total team of 14 people, 5 of which are the engineering leader and engineering team. And the CEO wants to improve their decision-making process and communication and has been referred to the Pragmatic Institute's framework and wanted to get some additional feedback. I will say, having been Pragmatic certified, I probably have maybe slightly more opinions on this than you do. I don't know if you've had to deal with Pragmatic in the past, but I will say Pragmatic feels like, I don't know what the right metaphor is here. It is good at helping you identify foundational skills, but at least the courses I've gone through don't really have a strong opinion on the actual execution framework framework. Whether you're agile, waterfall, scrum, Kanban, extreme programming, like it didn't really get into that. It was talking about those basic skill sets of how do you identify problems, how do you prioritize things. And so I think it's interesting to go and do as an exercise to develop team member skill sets, but I don't know. I think pragmatic will help you on the product vision, roadmap, problem solution identification skills. It's turning that into execution with your engineers that is going to be the challenge that pragmatic is really not designed to answer. So I mean, my answer is really like, maybe it's time to hire an actual product manager who has those skills already, because what you're going to get out of pragmatic is going to make you slightly better at decision making, but it's not actually going to make your day-to-day with your engineering team any more effective, because it's not about that. It is about how you get a person to find the right problems and solve them for your customers. And I don't know. So yeah, I enjoyed pragmatic. I thought it had a bunch of value, but I don't know that it's the answer here for this team. I don't know if you had to deal with pragmatic at all in your past.
No, I'll be super honest with you. It sounds like an MLM. Sounds like some multi-level marketing bullshit. Like,
multi-level marketing. It is. We had some. I enjoyed the courses we went through. They were remote and helpful in getting people to think about things differently. But it was very much like, you've never had to think about how to identify a customer problem. So let's walk you through some different types of exercises you could do. But in the real world, no one does the 4-hour post-it note, index card, color-coded, write the story from the blah, blah, blah. Like, the exercises are to get people's brains working in a new, interesting way. It's not how you do your day-to-day.
Which is interesting when you consider the word pragmatic.
Right. Yeah. No, it is. Yeah, it is foundational. Yeah.
And honestly, I feel like sometimes people just found a neat way to categorize things horizontally and vertically and said, oh, that looks good.
Make a ton of money off of it. It's the agile industrial complex has turned everything into, you need a coach and you need a session and you need to pay us $30,000 to get better at it. Listen, it's a good scam.
What's that? What was it? Did you ever like Six Sigma?
I've heard of Six Sigma. I have no idea what it even does.
Let me just refresh my memory. Set of tools and methodologies that businesses use to improve processes by reducing defects and errors, minimizing variation, increasing quality and efficiency. The goal is to achieve a level of quality that is nearly perfect with only 3.4 defects per million opportunities. And I'm not saying it's BS. I'm just saying, I've done pretty well without it.
Right, exactly.
I don't know.
All right, 420 Juke. Is that JUK?
I think it's 420, so I think they're Stoner, and I think it's JUK.
Yeah. I'm done writing UX content for my team. I'm an associate product manager and have been writing tooltips, subtext, headers, and fields for a lot of features, even ones that I haven't actively built. Ideally, these should have been figured out during the design process itself, but unfortunately, due to the speed at which we ship, these get looked over. The back and forth between developers to make these small changes is honestly annoying. They don't like doing it, neither do I. Being a small startup, we don't have the resource to hire a UX writer as well. And so they have all of these little, welcome to software design. You have all of these little things and you need to figure out what is the 5 most effective words to describe the thing. Like, you're welcome to startup life. I don't mean to be a jerk about it, but you're not going to hire a UX person anytime soon. Someone's got to do it. I don't know. There's pretty good conversation in this Reddit thread about pretty good disagreements about people saying the role of the PM is to fill in those gaps. If you don't have a UX person and you're providing requirements to the engineers, you're probably on the hook for writing these little pieces of text and tooltips and all of that kind of stuff, and other people pointing out that's what leads to burnout. There's probably not a perfect answer here, but yeah, I feel like your and my answers are probably the same, which is welcome to startups. Suck it up.
I also couldn't match the username up to the angst, because I was like, if you're 420, why do you give a shit? Just
chill out, man. No, it is one of those things where maybe you're just not a good startup person, because yes, you have to balance getting burnt out. I don't think I want to do another startup anytime soon, because I know I burn myself out when I do it, and I probably need to find a better way of working in those situations. But I am in my point in my career because I did volunteer and just be the person who did did things. I got good at UX design because we didn't have a UX designer. I got good at writing code because I was the only person who wanted to go solve a problem, and I used code to do it. Like, raising your hand and just going and doing a thing has been good for me. Manage that to within degrees. Don't volunteer for free to work 80 hours a week. But when you see a gap in a startup and you're the one who decides to go fill it in within reason, that's good for you and that's good for the startup, and people will notice that. And I don't know, to me, it's net positive. As long as you don't do it in a way that kills you, it's a net positive.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. So 420 Juke, JUK, it's okay. What doesn't break you makes you stronger. That's my general advice here, because and I think the interesting thing too, and I'm assuming level of experience at times on these,
Sure.
I think in 10, 15 years, they'll look back at some of these moments and say, oh, I don't even remember those hard times, because these are just the little challenges in front of you now. And then you get to a level where you're like, yeah, it gets a lot more serious. People's livelihoods and careers, and there's all kinds of other decisions that are going to be a lot more important over the next 10, 15 years. So
I will say also, in the product world, it sounds slightly goofy, but there are times when these types of decisions make you realize you've built a feature badly. So when you have to go and say, I need to figure out the text to describe the header over these 4 fields, and as I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it, I realize these are the wrong 4 fields to be grouped together. That's not how the feature should work. When I try to make it make sense to the user, it doesn't. Like, that's a good skill set for you to build up, actually. So there are cases where this is just a helpful exercise for you, and a UX person probably would have noticed that themselves and changed the design as a result. And you don't have one of those, so now you're going to write better requirements in the future. I don't know. I see it being good.
the life of a product guy, man, it sounds so hard. Jeez.
It's tough out here for a product person.
It really is. It really is. It's so hard.
All right, well, that's going to do it for us on this episode of Acceptance Criteria. To read articles we've written on similar topics to the ones we talk about here, head over to the blog at acceptancepod.com. You can also follow us on most apps. We're at acceptancepod. We'll post links to show notes and any articles from the blog over there. We're also building a community on Reddit at r/acceptancecriteria and on Discord. You can find links to both in the show notes and on the blog, and I promise we'll be moderating the crap out of them to keep it a nice little slice of the internet. For now, I'm Kevin Thomas Euland, and you can find me on most apps at kthomaseuland. That's ULLAND.
And I'm Andrew Greener, and you can find me on most apps at Criteria Greener. That's GREINER. And this has been Acceptance Criteria. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to hearing from you.